you're training for a race. We think if you just do this bare minimum, you're going to show up prepared and have a great experience. So that's what we just want to share with everyone, I guess.
Welcome to the Load Time Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
I'm Chris, and this is episode 165 of the show. This week, we have another installment of our Swimrun 101 series. In this episode, we share our thoughts on swimrun training. Thoughts formed from our many conversations with coaches, athletes, and on our own training and racing experience. For this episode, we break up our discussion on swimrun training into 3 distinct training categories. Physical fitness, seems pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. Fueling and hydration, aka gut training, and the mental side, mental prep.
Nice.
So, Chipper, why are we doing this?
It's a great question, Chris. Well, we've noticed in our own training what has really helped us show up to the start lines feeling confident for the challenges, ones we know about and ones we don't know about. And we've developed a pattern and a sort of a rhythm to our training with the help of our coach, obviously, to get prepared over the last few years that we've been working in a more pointed fashion at improving our swim running abilities.
It's been about 2 years since we've had a coach.
Yeah, so we obviously, don't know or claim to know all there is about endurance training, but we've had a lot of great guests on the show that do, and we're going to include all the links to the previous shows and those notes and those episodes. So you want to make sure to check that out in the show notes. But anyway, we hope you find our musings on training helpful.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I felt like we never would have put out this episode 164 ago.
Oh, definitely. And even now, it's like we get asked this question so often, and I think we have a pretty good answer. I'm really happy with our answer, and that's kind of where this came from. It's like, hey, you're training for a race. We think if you just do this bare minimum, you're going to show up prepared and have a great experience.
Yeah,
so that's what we just want to share with everyone, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And it's going to be less about this is the exact workout that you need to do to run this speed or swim this speed, but it's kind of more general guidelines of how to break up your week. Because, everyone has a different schedule. Everyone's busy, family, life, work, you name it. So let's get into the physical fitness aspect of swimrun training. Let's start with the swim.
Yeah,
swim
so like we just mentioned, we get asked this question a lot, and I think what we've found is that in terms of physical fitness, you can really break it down into 3 categories. Swim training, run training, and strength, cross training, yoga, other stuff. But so we think, treating each separately, but they're still part of a whole system of sort of physical fitness. And for us, and Chipper, you and I, we've been chatting about this. It feels like for months we've been sort of with this observation that you for training for a race, your run training should be specific for whatever course you might be doing or courses you might be doing.
Yeah.
But the swim training, that's something that should just be happening in the background 2 or 3 times a week. Masters is great. And almost it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't even have to be in open water. It's just like getting in the reps in the water, working on your stroke, getting just super comfortable, going long, going fast, going slow, and just like developing that engine. Yeah,
and I think this is probably the biggest shift that you and I have had in our training is that, this goes back all the way back to the triathlete days, and maybe it's like a bad habit from the triathlete days is, oh, well, the swim's the shortest bit, so I'm going to invest the least amount of time, and that's me going to the pool 2 days a week kind of thing. One thing about us when we started really getting intentional about training is we're swimmers now. We got to think like swimmers. We have to be in the pool a couple days a week.
Sure.
And we have to be doing a decent amount. It wasn't always like that.
It wasn't obvious. I think, for me, I definitely noticed that this was a deficiency that I had. And if I really wanted to enjoy the sport and progress in the sport, I had to commit to swimming. And that happened pretty much right after Austin in 2020.
Yep.
Where I signed up for Tower 26. We had Jerry Rodriguez on the show, and basically, like, I was just like, this is what I need to do. And what we found, and then we got a coach, and the coach was like, this is what you need to do too.
Yeah.
But what we found is just whatever, I don't even care what you're doing, what sort of intervals or anything, but follow some swim program where you're working on developing your speed, alignment,
and consistency too. And that's what we've noticed. It's not so much are you going and crushing 5,000 yards every workout. Are you going 2 to 3 times a week
Right.
for weeks on weeks on weeks and just kind of stack it, and just it's part of your routine of kind of your training. And that's what we noticed were a lot of the gains. And personally, like I feel that I have a good feel of my stroke, and I feel confident in the water after, a couple weeks in a row of regular swim training. And it's not about, it's after the 5,000th yard or the 10,000 yard of the week of when it unlocks. For me, it's kind of more the consistency.
Yeah, I would say it's feel of the water and sort of developing of gears. I think that's, I think Brad was talking about this in terms of deadlifting, where, you might only have like a couple different ranges, but as you practice and get more comfortable going at different speeds, you develop these different gears to the point where some races would be like, Chipper, I'm going to take this at 80%, and you know exactly what I meant, which that might be on the crazy end, but...
Yeah, and that might be on the advanced end where we're able to, and again, we've been working at this for 2 years.
Right, it's like
we have those percentages.
Yards in the pool together.
Yeah, it could be as easy as I have a slow speed, I have a medium speed, and I have a fast speed. And one of my workouts a week, I'm going to work on swimming faster, and then the not fast will be slow, and that's how you start to kind of define the gears that you have in the pool.
And one of the reasons we say this, and one of the reasons we tell anyone who's interested in Swimrun, try to become the best swimmer you can, is because swimming is super challenging. It can be scary.
It brings people the most fear.
Yeah, conditions can be rough out there. The stronger swimmer you are, the less of a chance that your event is going to turn into an ordeal. Mm-hmm. And I've had those. Casco 2018 was definitely turned into an ordeal where we just like, we got to survive this. So fast forward now, it's like, I'm not even worried about the swims. I'm just, let's just cross those bridges when we get to them, see what the water conditions are like, and just go for it. And just be confident that you've put in the work going into it.
Yeah, you have to sort of trust the process, trust the guidance that you've been given, and trust the work that you've done, the bank that you have that you can tap into that.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I mean, if you're doing short course races or long course, just adjust your sort of yardage or meters per week that you're doing. But yeah, definitely 2 to 3 days a week is probably going to be a great place to start in the pool. 20-30 minutes a couple times a week, stack that over a couple months, you'll start to see some progress and feel the confidence.
And because swimming doesn't have to be periodized, so what we're saying is like, hey, just get into a habit of swimming regularly and just stick with it. And then what you want to do from there is sort of overlay sort of the next two pieces, which is strength and cross training and run training. Strength and cross training, that's, staying limber, making sure you're strong enough to handle the demands of all the transitions. Like, can you do a burpee? Because you're basically going to do like 30 burpees in a long race.
Yeah.
Practicing going from horizontal to vertical, all that stuff can be really good. But that also goes into run training, and I think we can kind of take these together a little bit because swim run, every course is different. So you essentially need to prepare for the race that you have coming up. And what I always think about, Chipper, is remember we had Nicholas on for our Engadin course preview, and he gave us his what workout would you do for this race? And it was this crazy, just...
Because Engadin's a mountain swim run, so there's tons of hills. So it's this hill repeat.
And this is like his up workout where, I mean, it was crazy. It was just like you swim for 10 minutes and you just basically run steep hills. Luckily in San Francisco, no problem.
Yeah.
And we did that workout, and I mean, it was like, I can see if he's prescribing this every week, 6 weeks out of a race, like you're going to be ready for that event.
You're going to be ready for the hills. And that's how we sort of adjust our training when we're approaching a race. So we always have some, insert your mileage per week of runs here spread out over a few, however many you can get in there during the week. But let's just say 20 to 30 miles a week. And then, hey, we're doing Casco Bay. We know it's not as a hilly of a course. So we're going to work on a little bit more swim heavy. We're going to work a little bit more on terrain like trails, and then work on some speed a little bit. Maybe hit the track. So some of those road sections or more runnable areas, we can get some speed down. And one big thing that we agreed on when we were talking about this on one of our runs was hit the trails. Always be hitting the trails because you're going to need the dynamic nature of the footing, the scenery. It's training where you race, essentially.
Sure, yeah, and I think, that point is always well taken. Like, you have to adapt trail running requires like an adaptation, like your ankles get stronger, your sort of soft connecting muscles get stronger. And swim running, for the most part, is on trails. So you're going to be running that element. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to sort of skin the run training piece. But basically, again, we're not prescribing any particular workout, but we have a ton of episodes. I mean, just look in the show notes. We have basically like 7 guests. Most of them have been on multiple times, basically letting us know what training should look like. So we recommend you check out those episodes. We've linked them all in the show notes. But yeah, I think in terms of physical fitness, a very raw swim run training program looks like in the background, just always swimming.
Yeah.
No real change. You don't have to necessarily like, take weeks off or anything like that. As long as you're healthy and following a good plan, like your body recovers from swimming. It's less of an impact on your body. And then run training, the same way you train for any race, except that instead of just training for like a 5K, 10K half or something, you're training for what this course looks like, what you think you're going to be facing in this particular event.
Yeah. Great call. And then I think people might ask, well, when do I train swim run? Which is definitely a fair question to ask. And our approach has changed on that, I would say, over the years. And I think for us, and especially if you're much newer in the sport, which we're going to assume if you're listening to the Swimrun 101, you're a little bit newer. You sort of need the reps of swim running and the transitions and the tether and going from swim to run and run to swim. You kind of need reps. You need some reps in those. And the more practice and familiarization you can get with the mechanics of transition, again, like Chris said, the better time you're going to have. It's going to be less than an ordeal during the race.
Yeah, my neck is hurting from nodding. So
I know you're just like a bobblehead over
absolutely, there. Absolutely. Like swim running is a kind of a random activity. And if you've never done it before, the first time it gets weird. I mean, I remember doing shakeout swim runs, and I'm going to call out, Run for Tacos, where I met them, fans of the show. We meet them at the Orcas Island Shakeout, and they're asking me, well, how do we do this tether thing? And they're having all these problems, and I just, very simple, just keep it midline, person in the back, just like right up the middle, solve their problem. Yeah. Right? They would have figured it out. But if they're trying to figure out on race day, I mean, it's always better if you do it beforehand.
Totally.
And they had an awesome race, so that was great.
And it doesn't have to be in the water on land. If you are, let's say you show up to the race a few days before with your partner, you can't make it out to a actual location to swim run. In your hotel room, both of you lay on the floor, hey, we're swimming, and then get up and practice transitioning and practice how the tether's going to be and do that. Yep. Work in your burpees, get a little workout in there, and practice that. And just the more practice you get, it just becomes so familiar. Even during a race that we've been doing, I felt myself getting better at it as it went, as the race progressed in the race.
Sure.
So imagine what you could do pumping some reps out before.
Yeah, I mean, if you've heard this from us a ton of times, I mean, you could just leech. You can either lose a ton of time, or you can just be really efficient and save time for elsewhere by having nice, tidy transitions. And it just takes practice. And if you want to understand what transitions look like, we have a YouTube video where kind of break down kind of our thoughts, more detailed thoughts on how to transition. But yeah, point well taken. Swim run training, definitely the newer you are to sport, just fiddling with all the bits is good practice, because you're going to have to do it on race day. And, sort of advanced swim run flow state is where all this stuff is kind of automatic. You have sort of the muscle memory. You don't really have to think about it. Transition's coming up, and you kind of just do what you do. And that's where it just becomes super fun at some level. Absolutely.
So we'll move on to the next session, but basically we highlight a couple coaches here. Coach Mike O from Purple Patch Fitness had him on a few times. Obviously, Coach Nicholas Ramirez from Envol Coaching, Nate Helming,
strength
coach Mario Fraioli, Olympic caliber run coach, had him on. Jerry Rodriguez from Tower 26, also Coach Coach Lube, Jim Lube, and Megan. We had them on for an AMA as well. Coach John Stevens had him on for several episodes, and Coach Joel Friel.
I know.
An endurance legend coach.
Imagine that.
Talked to the Low Tide boys as well. So there is a dozen episodes from top minds and coaching minds in endurance sports right now. So definitely check those out. We've been lucky enough to get to talk to them and hear.
Yeah, I mean, and if you hear these, I think what you'll find is like, hey, we're following our curiosity. We're trying to get better. Yeah. So again, a lot of the stuff that we're telling you is stuff what we absorbed from just peppering these folks with questions. But let's move on to what we think is sort of the next part of swimrun training. And this is something that definitely came late to us in our development.
We're still figuring it out,
Still figuring it out, but so much better than it was. And that's fueling and hydration. And what we mean by that is like, unlike a road race, triathlon, whatever, where it's like a set aid station and they're every mile or whatever, swimrun, it just depends what's available and it's never going to be exactly the same. So
a little more self-reliant for sure.
You have to be more self-reliant. So Andy Blow, Precision Fuel and Hydration, like he really set us on this path, and I just have to thank him for that, really.
Absolutely.
Of just understanding that training for a race, you have to do the physical part, but you also have to train your gut for the demands that you're going to see. Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? What's going to be your fueling strategy? What's going to be a hydration strategy? And actually have a strategy that you follow so that you maintain the energy levels you need to have a great race.
Absolutely. And I mean, here's the problem, I think, why this isn't highlighted enough, and I'm guilty of this myself. I mean, a lot of people are. Oh, well, I've done insert XYZ race, and I haven't like ended up in the hospital, or I haven't totally bonked my brains out. I made it through on fumes. Like, yes, you can make it through, but you're just leaving time and performance really on the table by not properly fueling your engine, essentially.
Right.
And that's what really having a smart strategy around your fueling and hydration can also really help, is just help maximize how quick you're able to go, and then on the back end of that, how well you recover. Like,
totally,
are you just drained for 3 days because you ran out of sodium, basic, sort of thing?
No, and it's funny because it sounds like sponsored content, but it's not. It's just like the truth.
Yeah,
it's basically just the truth.
And that's what I mean. I will say without a doubt, our races since we've started working with precision fuel and hydration and working on training our gut, doing that in our practices. Can we get 60 grams of carbs an hour? Can we get 90? I have felt a stronger performance from myself personally when we've had those strategies throughout the race than previously.
Well, just having a plan is just part of executing a race, in swimrun in particular, which is there's such an adventure component, is like you have to be ready for the adventure. And some of that is like, well, what are you going to do food-wise? Like, I'm at the point where I can take a gel anytime, no water, no problem.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be a thing where, I got to take some water with a gel or else it's going to get, whatever. But yeah, it's just something that you have to practice. And practicing it during your training sessions, even if it's long recovery days, interval sessions. I mean, there's never a bad time to start figuring out what works for you, and know that that's a moving target. As you get fitter, your needs might change. You might become a heavier sweater. Like, who knows? Sweat less. Who knows? So just like you want to be on top of that, and we have tons of resources.
So where should people go to get started on that? Obviously, we have 3 great episodes featuring precision fuel and hydration folks. Andy Blow, the co-founder, was on twice, and then Abby Coleman, we had her on as well. But I think the first step is kind of understanding what your needs are, from just basic, like how tall are you, how much do you weigh, and how much do you kind of excrete during an event.
Figure out your sweat rate. Kind of get a baseline of what you're doing now. Try to up your carb intake, and again, just have a plan for it. Just be like, I'll just take one when I start feeling bonky. It's like, no. Take one every 30 minutes. See how that works.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have it linked here in the show notes, but definitely head over to Precision Fuel and Hydration. They have really great, basic, informative content for you. You can read about it, watch videos yourself. They also have articles how to test your sweat rate to understand, talking why you might want to have closer to 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. How do you train that?
Right, how caffeine works.
How does caffeine work for all this? But that's something that we've really changed the game for.
Totally. And it's the type of thing, like, if there's anything I wish I would have known earlier in life was this stuff. So working on that, all it'll do is make sure you're not bronching your brains out in a race.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Is that something I could interest you in? Not bonking your brains out?
Sign me up for that.
So let's move on to what we're calling sort of the last piece of swimrun training, and we're calling that sort of the mental prep side. And for us, that kind of means a couple things. It means getting aligned on our goals, whether you're racing solo or part of the team. Like, what are you trying to get out of this experience? And with that, kind of be realistic. Like, what does success look like? Are you trying to win this thing? What should it look like?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to win this thing, buddy.
Hey,
like, let's just try to have a good day. And then finally, and this is something since our very first swim run, it just became totally apparent to me, is you just have to embrace the ambiguity of it all.
And the adventure of it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not comfortable dealing with ambiguity, if you're okay with aid stations being like, a little bit farther down the road than you thought it was going to be, like, you just have to be ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially if you're new to swimrun again, and this is your first race with a partner, nothing's going to set your day up for a worse time than being a mismatched goal. If Chris and I, every race we did, Chris was thinking he was going for the podium, and I'm like, well, I'm here to take pictures and do a GoPro video. We're going to have a bad time, right?
Yeah.
So get on the same page. What do we want to do? Okay, here's our goal. It doesn't necessarily have to be, we want to do XYZ hours and this and that, or this place and that.
Yep.
We don't even really. We'll talk about times, but I think
it's kind of getting to the point where we're sort of we've known each other long enough, we've raced each other long enough that we kind of know how we're going into races. I mean, even to races where usually writes things down on your paddle, and I was like, oh, hey, how long is this next rung leg? And you're like, oh, don't know, got washed off. And I was like, all right, we'll just keep going.
Yeah,
like, no worries.
Let's go.
But I think talking about your goals, it reminded me of something that Susie Moonen told us, which was, answer the question of why. Why are you doing this? Like why this over anything else? And maybe it's to spend time with one of your best friends. Maybe it's to test for, go on a crazy adventure.
See what your body can
whatever
do.
It is. But having an answer to that question, I think, helps kind of get you to the point, and communicating that with your partner. If you're racing solo, just look in the mirror, or a loved one or whatever, just tell them why you're doing this. Because I think that kind of cements how you should prepare for something now that you know why you're doing it.
Yeah, totally. And it could be, you can do this all in your head. You can sit down and do it over beers with your partner. You can write it down in your own journal, whatever.
Use a digital whiteboard.
Yeah, you could totally do that. Use your notes app or whatever. However you want to do it. That's the best. Getting it out there, and at least the fact that you're thinking about it is just going to help your situation. And if your expectations are properly aligned with why it's important to you, you're probably going to have a much better time.
Yeah,
we're just saying.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that goes back to, if you're realistic, if you just sort of embrace the nature of it, the ambiguity and just the randomness of it all. Mm-hmm. And have good goals, understand why you're there and, what you're trying to achieve. And, I mean, if you do those things, you're opening yourself up to a major conversion experience. Like that first, we always say it, that first transition, that's where the magic happens. You're primed.
You're ready. You're oiled.
You're primed.
Ready to go. Lubed up. So we have had some great conversations with Susie Moonen. She's in Team Envol coach as well. She also has her own coaching practice.
Yeah, Push On Coaching.
Push On Coaching. We've had her on twice, and then Brad Stolberg, we've had him on twice as recently as last episode, actually.
Yeah, and that episode is gold.
That is a masterclass, especially it has to do with partners as well. And listen to episode 164 when you're doing your goals and talking about that with your partner. It'll really set you up for success there. But some of the stuff we talked in with Susie, obviously, some tactics to overcome difficult times, getting you out. If you do endurance sports long enough, you're gonna have your lows and you're gonna have your highs. How to deal with the lows, how to get out with them, how to make them not last as long. So that's some of the stuff that we're able to talk about with Susie, and then Brad just dropping knowledge bombs all day long.
Brad's Brad.
Yeah. So definitely go check those out.
Yeah, and again, we have them all linked in the show notes, so you can just click hyperlink from there. So I guess in summary, we think that this is our best thinking on what swimrun training on a very straightforward level should look like. I mean, that being said, we highly, highly recommend that listeners interested in actually taking their performance to the next level and really want to take it super seriously to look at some of the coaching resources that are out there, such as Envol Coaching. I mean, they're the number one, the Blue Army.
Yeah.
They're amazing. You'll definitely show up to a race prepared if you train with them.
There's no doubt about it.
Tower 26, which did wonders for me in just kind of getting my swim, just taking it to the next level. And then from there, that's really where the progression happened. Swimrun Coaching, which is based in Sweden, Purple Patch, and then Tot Endurance with Vile's group. Tons of resources. Pretty much master's swim coach will be fine. Some sort of running situation is fine. But if you're really looking for, if you want to really go all in on Swimrun, get a coach. It'll pay off.
Yeah, and I think, even just to chat about coaching, one part that I really enjoy, it took the mental work every day to think, okay, what do I need to do? Because I didn't have a plan. And just like if you show up with a race and you kind of don't have a plan, you're going to sort of have a whatever time. Same thing with your training. The coach just makes it easy for you, tells you what to do. You just got to follow orders for the most part. I like it.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Working with the coach has been great, especially if most people are actually working out too much. I mean, I guess I'm looking at myself when I say that, but but for the most part, coaches are there to hold you back, making sure that you're training correctly, taking your rest days easy, making your hard days hard, and just, if you want to go that route, I recommend just surrendering to the process.
Yeah, I mean that's totally an area that you've not been the best at for a while.
I think I showed a lot of personal growth.
I've been very impressed, and I think why you stuck with it because you saw the results almost within 3 months of you just did what it told you, and you didn't go extra when you were feeling really jazzed about it, and you just did the work, and in a very short amount of time, you were like, I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, when I signed up, we had Jerry on, Jerry Rodriguez on, read his book, and then
we did the Tower 26. You did it for longer than I did, but I did it for at least a quarter, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was doing it for like a month, and then I think you were like, I gotta get on this thing.
I know.
It's like Chris is going savage on me. But yeah, it's like committing to that and just listening to Jerry every Tuesday. I can't remember, Tuesday or Thursday. They had like a team call.
Yep.
And every week he would just drop something. I was like, man, that's like really good knowledge. I think he's a genius. He's a swim coach genius, open water swimming genius. And basically just that was really the first time. And I even told him this is like, I was scared for a lot of these workouts, like the Mambas and stuff. I'm like, damn. But I would just show up every day, do as many. I was going 3-4 times a week, just surrendering to the process. And that's really the first time. And I've had triathlon coaches before, obviously high school coaches and stuff. And I was always kind of like outthinking them or overachieving and just not even just don't think, just do what it says. Trust the person you're working with. And I mean, to me, that really unlocked. I was basically able to hold that basically through Atala, and then I kind of fell off the wagon and kind of had to go wild a little bit. But I'm ready to get back into it.
It's fine. You're good.
Sorry, it just turned into a confessional.
Any other sins to confess?
That's
okay.
That's
one. It. All right. Great. Well, we hope you found this episode useful for you on your journey into Swimrun. If this is the first episode you heard the Low Tide Boys, we have several other around the Swimrun 101 content. We also have Swimrun 201 contents, and then 164 other episodes as of time of recording now, and YouTube channel. The whole works for you to get you help sorted out on your Swimrun journey. We'll see you out there.
Hell yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of Swimrun.
Sign up for our newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our Swimrun activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff.
other stuff.
Way to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Go for a run.
Then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then another run.
And then just keep going. Until you're done.
So you're done. Or maybe can't
And then
stop.
stop.